Buenas tardes, soy el profe en cuarentena y vamos a ver si a ustedes les interesan los complementos de objetos indirectos. So today we're going to talk about indirect object pronouns, which will involve answering the questions, what is an indirect object? What are indirect object pronouns? How are they used? And which verbs always use indirect object pronouns in Spanish? And then we're going to do a little bit of practicing. So let's get started. What is an indirect object? What does that mean? Well, we've talked about other parts of the sentence so far. Let's take a look at this one. Carolina da. So this sentence uses the verb to give, dar. All right, and it's the ella form because Carolina is she. All right, if we were to replace her with the pronoun Carolina, the subject pronoun, we would replace it with ella. Ella da. She gives. But that sentence doesn't completely get the point across. All right, you can see in the picture that Carolina tiene una flecha dirigida a ella. She has an arrow pointed to her, Carolina. This doesn't tell the entire story of the picture. So, ella da, adding another part of the sentence that we've already talked about in another video. Ella da un regalo. She gives a gift. A gift, in this case, un regalo, is the direct object. What is given? Un regalo. What receives the action of the verb in this case? El regalo, the gift. Now we're adding another piece of the sentence. Here you see the entire thought. Ella da un regalo a su abuela. The indirect object is a little more abstract than the direct object and the subject and the verb. The indirect object is indirectly acted upon by the verb. And sometimes you can think of it as answering the question either to whom or for whom, or to what or for what, which is slightly more abstract, slightly perhaps more difficult to understand. So the direct object receives the action of the verb, and then the indirect object answers the question to whom, for whom, or to what, for what. So what are indirect object pronouns? Well, we've already talked about a few types of pronouns. First of all, let's address the subject, Carolina. In this case, Carolina is a proper noun. It's the name of the person who's giving the gift. If we want to replace Carolina with a subject pronoun, we would choose which one? We've already done it earlier in the presentation. We would replace it with ella. Ella. She in Spanish. She gives a gift. Ella is the subject pronoun. Ella da un regalo. When we're addressing the direct object, in this case, un regalo, if we wanted to replace it with a pronoun, we would choose from one of these, the direct object pronouns. Me, te, lo, la, nos, os, los, or las. In this case, un regalo, which one would replace it? Un regalo. What do we know about that? Well, it's not me, it's not you, it's not we, definitely. It's third person. It's an it in this case. But remember, Spanish works with nouns that have gender, either masculine or feminine. What is un regalo? Is it masculine or is it feminine? Well, if you said masculine, then you're correct. And because of that, we replace it with lo. We would replace it with lo, the equivalent of el in the subject. So if we were to do that, replace both Carolina y un regalo with the pronoun, it would become ella lo da. Ella, it gives. Remember, Spanish has a difference in the syntax, the difference in the sentence structure. The direct object pronoun comes before the verb. So we've talked about those in other videos. So let's take a look. Let's take this step forward. And take a look at ella da un regalo a su abuela. We've replaced or we put un regalo back in the sentence to make it a little more simple starting out. So a su abuela. If we wanted to say she gives the gift to her, all right? If we wanted to replace su abuela with her, to her, the indirect object, we would choose le, all right? The ella form, the equivalent of the subject pronoun ella would be le. All right, we'll go over these one by one in a second, but that would end up in the same place as the direct object pronoun. So ella le da un regalo. In this case, saying she gave a gift to her. All right, le da un regalo. Right. So we know indirect object pronouns, or you've already looked at those in another video. We practiced in class. Me, te, lo, la, nos, os, los, las. So the gift. We're talking about the thing given, the thing that is acted on, the one that receives, the object or person that receives the action of the verb. We also talked about, and not entirely relevant in this particular video, we talked about another set of pronouns, reflexive pronouns. These are when we're talking about myself, yourself, herself. These refer back to the subject. When the subject and the direct object are the same thing, like the girl looking at herself in the mirror, you use me, te, se, nos, os, se. When you're talking about the indirect object, remember this responds to the question to what, to whom, you use basically the same set with the same exceptions. Remember, lo, la were the third person version singular, los, las plural. They were replaced with se in the instance of the reflexive pronouns. When we're talking about indirect object pronouns, we've got a new set, just changing the third person again. Le and les. Le and les. So all together, me, to me, te, to you. Le can either be to you, sir, to you, man, to him, to her. Nos, which is to us. Os, to y'all, only in Spain. And then les, to y'all, outside of Spain, to them, the masculine and the feminine version in Spanish. Just a quick touching on this other subject, which we're not going to delve into in this class, but if you have to use two together, the indirect object and the direct object together, they precede the verb, they come before the conjugated verb. Indirect object pronouns come before direct object pronouns. And when you're using to third person, you give it to her, it would be se la, or se lo in this case, se lo da. Let me show you that in this sentence. Because of the evolution of pronunciation of Spanish, more in-depth subject that than you would typically find in English or in Spanish in the high school level. Because of that, the pronunciation changed of this from lelo to gelo to celo. And so we've got this little exception. You can't use le with lo or la. You have to change it to se. This is not reflexive, even though it's the same pronoun you would use. But that's a more advanced concept than you're required to know at this point. So which verbs require indirect object pronouns? I'm going to talk about this, but you already know about this. You just didn't call it by its name. All right. So first of all, let's talk about reflexive verbs. There are some verbs that inevitably take a reflexive pronoun, and you can see them here. For example, yo me llamo. You already used that when you were in Spanish 1. I call myself. You bathe yourself. You feel. Again, this is reflexive in Spanish, but not reflexive in English. Nosotros nos lavamos. We bathe ourselves, etc. These verbs require the reflexive pronoun. And you can see those in the dictionary by the se at the end of the infinitive. Llamarse. there's no indication in the dictionary that you're looking at a verb that uses the indirect object. You don't get a clue when you look it up in the dictionary. You just have to memorize this sort of short list of verbs that are a little odd to us English speakers. They're a little different. They require indirect objects. But you've already used one of these in Spanish 1. And because it's so common, it's necessary to learn at the Spanish 1 level. So sometimes we call these verbs like gustar. Gustar is the verb that you learn in Spanish 1 inevitably, and you learned it perhaps as I like. It does take the place of the English version I like, and it is, in this particular case, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about another verb called doler, but we'll dive into gustar right now, sort of a review. So we've got the indirect object in the regular sentence. Ella da un regalo a su abuela. Su abuela is the indirect object. The gift is given to her, which makes her the indirect object. And we replace it with le. If we want to replace su abuela with to her, ella le da un regalo. But le gusta el regalo, what does that mean? Pull back from your Spanish 1 knowledge and tell me, what does that mean? Le gusta el regalo. If you said she likes the gift, then you've pretty much translated it into English as you would. That's how you translate it. But that's not exactly what that sentence means. Taking a little side trip, look at gustar. Gustar is conjugated regularly in the present tense. Yo gusto, tú gustas, usted gusta, nosotros gustamos. In theory, you conjugate it exactly regularly. No differences, no irregularities. And if you were to call it to like, if you were to translate that verb to like, you might want to say yo gusto and then an object like yo gusto el fútbol. That is not how Spanish works. That's not actually how you say you like something. It's not to like. It's to be pleasing. All right, gustar means to be pleasing, which means that we use only, most of the time, only gusta or gustan. None of those other ones. There are some poetic uses that you might technically be able to use the others, but gusta and gustan are the ones we use. So in this case, we use gusta. Le gusta el regalo. She likes the gift. But what we're really saying is the gift, the subject, el regalo, is pleasing to her. But you see, the order of the sentence does not reflect that in English. You're really saying to her is pleasing the gift. But the gift is still the subject. The gift is still what is making that verb gustar conjugate to gusta. So if there's one thing that someone's liking that is pleasing to a person, you use gusta, one thing. So in this case, me gusta la ardilla. I like the squirrel. Me gusta la ardilla. Te gusta la ardilla. Le gusta la ardilla. El ardilla, because it's feminine, and you use the el because it starts with a. Sorry about that. El ardilla. Le gustan los regalos. So if she were getting more than one gift, la abuela, you would say to her are pleasing, not is pleasing, are pleasing los regalos. Los regalos are plural, and because that's the subject, you use gustan. They are pleasing to her. So if there's more than one thing that is being liked, that is pleasing, right, then you use gustan. Me gustan las ardillas. Te gustan las ardillas. Le gustan las ardillas. So they are pleasing to him, to us, to them, to you, to me. It's odd, but this is the way that they say they like things in Spanish. So it's something you have to get accustomed to, because you say you like things a lot. People usually do. So me gustan las ardillas, or no me gustan las ardillas, if you didn't like them. So le gusta el regalo Right? El regalo is the subject. If you wanted to replace or to make it clear, sorry, that a specific person is being pleased by this gift, that a specific person likes this gift. At the beginning, before the indirect object pronoun, the indirect object pronoun is going to be there no matter what. But if you want to make it clear who, you say a, the person, and then the indirect object pronoun. So, for example, a ella le gusta el regalo. To her, basically, to her is pleasing the gift. But this is so you can specify who's liking it. In this case, it's not really very specific. It's not specific enough. So a ella le gusta el regalo doesn't work for us. You need to be more specific. A mi abuela le gusta el regalo. To my grandmother is pleasing the gift. Remember, you still have to have the indirect object pronoun. This doesn't go away even when you're clarifying. A mi abuela le gusta el regalo. And she thinks, a mí me gusta el regalo. I like the gift. A mí me gusta el regalo. So you have here the indirect object pronouns, the clarifications, the one that can go before, a mí, me. These are both forms of the indirect object pronoun, but the first one that just appeared is a clarification. It's not a necessity. A mí me gusta, a ti te gusta, a él le gusta, a ella le gusta, a usted le gusta, a nosotros o nosotras nos gusta, and a ellos, a ellas, a ustedes les gusta. Really, when you're referring to a mí, a ti, a nosotros, since they only have one subject possible, one indirect object possible in this case, it's just for emphasis. So if you said a mí me gusta, you'd be saying, well, I like, you would be emphasizing it. A mí me gusta el regalo. Most people would just say me gusta. But if you want to say, well, I like it, you might not, but I like it, you would say, a mí me gusta el regalo. Everything below the line is something that's probably going to be necessary if you're talking about a specific person. A Marco le gusta. A mi abuela le gusta. A usted le gusta. A Julio y Carlos les gusta. A las alumnas les gusta. Y a Marta y tú les gusta. A word about these verbs. It's easier to remember that they're indirect object pronoun, that there's a requisite for that. If you remember that their definitions are really sort of indirect, sort of passive. To be boring, aburrir, to be boring. To be disgusting, disgustar. To be painful, doler. To be enchanting, encantar. To be lacking, faltar. Gustar, importar. You can see these are passive definitions. And these are the actual literal definitions of these verbs, which is why they take indirect object pronouns. So focusing back on doler, because that's the new one we're learning, you can see that the O is red because it's what kind of verb? Take a good look and tell me what kind of verb you see on the screen, doler. It's a boot verb, a stem changer. Nosotros and nosotras, vosotros, vosotras are regular. But in all the other forms, you have O to UE. Duelo, dueles, duele, duelen. But which two are we going to use almost exclusively? The third person. All right? Because again, the definition is to be painful. So if you said duelo, you'd be saying, I'm painful to, maybe to someone else. Te duelo, I'm painful to you. All right, that wouldn't be something you would often say. So these are the ways that you would typically use it. A él le duele el hombro. To him is painful the shoulder. What would you say in English? What would the actual translation of that sentence be? His shoulder hurts. All right, his shoulder hurts. It's painful to him. His shoulder hurts. A él le duele el hombro. All right, remember, el hombro is the subject. If you're talking about el ojos, how would you say that? His eyes hurt. How would you say that in Spanish? All right, pause it if you need more time, but I'm going to show the answer. A él le duelen los ojos. Los ojos is a plural subject, so the verb is conjugated duelen. A él le duelen los ojos literally means to him are painful the eyes, but in Spanish or in English, sorry, we would say his eyes hurt. So let's do a little practice. A mí gusta la música. What would you fill those blanks with? A mí me gusta la música. To me is pleasing the music. In English, we would say, I like music. Me gusta la música. How about in this case? A nosotros gustan los deportes. Pause it if you need more time. A nosotros nos gustan los deportes. Indirect object nos with the ending gustan to match the plural subject los deportes. A usted aburren las películas. There's an error on the screen. I neglected to write las películas. A usted aburren las películas. Pause it if you need more time. A usted le aburren las películas. Le is the indirect object that matches usted. Aburren is the plural third person because las películas, again, copied that. Las películas is plural, so aburren is the conjugated form of the verb. One more. A ustedes encanta ir de excursión. So give me the indirect object pronoun and the ending to encantar. Pause it if you need more time. A ustedes les encanta ir de excursión. Ir de excursión means to hike. Right? So in the case of a verb, if it's something that you like to do, or in this case you love to do, it would be the singular version of the verb. To y'all, it is pleasing to hike. All right, so you would use the singular version, in this case, encanta. A ustedes les encanta ir de excursión. Let's step it up just a bit. We're using the verb doler. How would you say your back hurts in Spanish? You have tú, the subject, or in this case, a subject pronoun, la espalda. How would you make a sentence that means in Spanish, your back hurts? Pause it if you need more time. The sentence would be, a ti te duele la espalda. To you is painful the back. In Spanish, we would, or in English, we would translate that your back is hurting. A ti te duele la espalda. Selena y los pies. How do you say Selena's feet hurt? Pause it if you need more time. A Selena le duelen los pies. Le is the indirect object that functions for to her. Duelen is plural because los pies is plural. If it were one thing, it would be duele. Nosotros y las orejas. Pause it if you need more time. A nosotros nos duelen las orejas. Our ears hurt. One more. Ustedes y el estómago. Y'all's stomach hurts. Pause it if you need more time. A ustedes les duele el estómago, even though there's more than one person, because the subject, el estómago, is singular. We assume that everyone's stomach is hurting, but we only have to say el estómago. It is singular, and so is duele. Not duelen, but duele. Les duele el estómago. So we've talked about indirect object pronouns today. We've answered the questions, what is an indirect object? The definition is a little more abstract, but it answers the question in the sentence, to whom or to what, or for whom or for what. Two, what are indirect object pronouns? We've gone through the list of those. Me, te, le, nos, os, les. How are they used? They go before the verb, the conjugated verb, just like direct object pronouns, just like reflexive pronouns. Which verbs always use indirect object pronouns? There's a handful of them. You can find some more poetic, less used verbs online that follow that rule. For your sake, gustar, doler, encantar, faltar, interesar, and a few others will be the ones you used. And we did a little practice. So the next video that we're planning to do in this chapter, what are prepositions? What are prepositions? Watch the video again if you need to continue to review this. And I hope everyone is doing well. Hasta pronto.